This is the Makita M9204B 5-inch corded random orbital sander. At $85, it was the cheapest Makita sander I could find. In this video, I'm going to test how good the dust extraction can be on such a cheap sander. Is it really worth it? To find out, I'm going to do a couple of tests. I'm going to keep this test fairly simple. I'm going to do two things. First of all, I'm going to have a look at the amount of air coming out of the back of the sander as it normally operates. So we'll just have a look and see how strong that is in terms of natural extraction. And then I'm going to attach it to a dust extractor and see how well that works as well. I'm going to use a 40 grit garnet abrasive, pretty ordinary one, nothing special, something you might find at your local hardware. It's got the 8-hole pattern, so it suits the Makita. It's not actually a Makita disc. And then I'm going to apply that to some fairly smooth radiata pine, and that's because that's probably the sort of timber that you might use frequently if you're a hobbyist or if you're a student picking something up at the local hardware for your design project. Then I'm going to wipe it clean with this black rag. Again, a very simple idea, but that'll just give us an idea as to how much dust is left on the surface of the timber. So again, not particularly scientific, but we'll see what sort of results we get. Test number one, how much air comes out of the sander generated by its own internal fan? Pretty good, actually. Test number two, I'm going to connect it up to my Festool dust extractor, which means we have the internal dust extraction from the sander itself, plus the extraction provided by the vacuum. Oh, and this part here, this part is an adapter that goes between the hose and the sander, which just provides a little bit of relief on the suction power, so that as the extractor is monitoring the amount of suction being created by the sander, or the resistance being created by the sander, that it doesn't automatically switch the dust extraction off or have it start beeping at you because it thinks that it's too full. This part is available in Australia. Not too sure about other markets though. I did have one other person say that it wasn't available in the US market. Oh, and in case you're wondering, to get a good fit between the Festool attachment here and the dust port on the sander, I actually used two little bits of bicycle inner tube, and I did another video on that, so you might like to check that out. I'm running the sander for about 60 seconds to see how much dust appears to be hanging around and not being sucked into the extractor. So far it looks quite good. Now I'll use my dry black rag to see how much dust is left over. That's pretty good actually. So as you can see, it's not too bad. With the hose attached and with the vacuum running, the extraction is reasonable, and it's only got 8 holes, and there are other ones, of course, like the Festool ones, which have many more holes and cost many more dollars, which perform much, much better. But let's just remember, this is only $85. The question that you're probably asking is, what if you didn't have the hose attached, but you just had the normal dust bag attached that it comes with, which I would never use? And that's a fair question, so let's do that test as well. It's not much of an unboxing. It's a pretty simple cardboard box. That's what we're after. This is test number 3 with the standard dust bag. Again, I'm running it for about 60 seconds. Now you're probably thinking that that wasn't really a fair contest because they weren't both new from the start, but you can see that there's not really that much wear on the one that I used for the first test, but to satisfy the nitpickers, let's take that one off and we'll just run that second test just with the bag and a brand new disc, and we'll see what happens. Now this really is very coarse. Now some of you might be thinking, why are you scratching up that perfectly nice piece of radiata pine? And I'm starting to think that myself, but for the sake of experimentation, let's give it a shot. Again, another 60 seconds, and we'll see how this goes. Starting with the clean section of the black rag, the result is not quite as good as when the extractor is connected, but still pretty good. Let me know what you think. So overall, what do I think of this? Well, for $85, I think it's pretty good. Look, there's nothing special about it. There's no variable speed control, the disc size is fairly small at 125mm or 5 inches, and you can't take the pad off to put specialty pads on for other applications. It's a pretty basic machine. But as far as the dust extraction goes, the black rag test would suggest that the standard bag attachment is not bad, but of course you're going to get a much better result with a dust extractor attached, and you'll get a much better result as far as the ambient dust is concerned as well. Would I use this if I had to sand all day long? No, definitely not. Would I use this in a school environment? No, I wouldn't either, because you have to be very particular about dust extraction, and you've got to think about how many people will be using this throughout the day and how much dust that will create. But for the occasional sanding job to have around the place or to have in your garage, yeah, I think it's actually really good value. Now, speaking of value, if you've got value out of this video, it would be great if you could like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.